Today, you are going to get a front row seat to the ultimate Springboks versus Romania Rugby World Cup preview. I'm going to be joined by Lucian Mircescu. He is the chairman of the Aurora Băicoi Sporting Club in Romania. Lucian, welcome to Front Row Rugby.
Good to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure, and thank you very much for being available. Let's start with Romania's match this past weekend at the Rugby World Cup against Ireland. What were your thoughts on the way that your team performed?
Well, what can I say? It was a rough start for our boys. The score says it all, unfortunately. Uh, the boys, they did the best they can, I think. But obviously, there's a difference in rugby value at the end of the day. I have to be honest about this. I think we had a pretty good, or at least a decent first half. Uh, but unfortunately, we were not able to keep up with the Irish as far as both physicality and endurance are concerned. So especially in the last 20, 30 minutes, I think, we were simply unable to fend off most Irish attacks. And they felt very much at ease, the Irish, against us. I wouldn't say it was our proudest moment in the World Cup, but yes, it is what it is. At the end of the day, we're just very happy to be there, and it's a very good experience for the boys, most of whom are experiencing their first World Cup. I think part of the explanation for the rough start is the fact that we haven't qualified for the World Cup in 2019 as a result of administrative issues at the end of the day. But yeah, that's life. We just weren't there. So now we have let's say, a fairly young generation of boys who are gaining their first experience in the World Cup, and hopefully it will be extremely useful in the years to come.
You mentioned there that Romania didn't qualify for the 2019 Rugby World Cup. That was because of an ineligible player. And as it turned out, for 2023, Spain had an ineligible player. So it was quite interesting how that all worked out. But for our viewers who may not be familiar with the story, can you explain what actually happened?
Yeah, it was a very, very sad moment for us because we didn't feel that the ineligible player that we used actually made that much of a difference, because on the field on the pitch we managed to qualify for the repêchage, so the qualification process. But yeah, well, fact of the matter is that we used a player who originated from Tonga, who apparently was ineligible because of the fact that he played for the Sevens national team, and Tonga Sevens national team, and we were not aware of that. We based our eligibility process on misinformation. So that's exactly what happened. Apparently, the World Rugby was kept off by some Russian forces who were ultimately the main beneficiaries of our lack of qualification. But I think we had a pretty good team back then, and I think we would have qualified anyways from the repêchage process. Yeah. But such is life. What can I say? The thing is that there are many teams, including the Tier 1 teams, who are using the eligibility rules to get new players, especially from the Pacific Islands. But ultimately, I think our union administrative capacity let us down. It's unfortunate to say this, but yeah, it happened, and we took it very hard, very, very hard. And I think now we see the consequences of that happen in the form of our team. The general rugby suffered a blow because of that.
It's a real shame, isn't it? So, Lucian, tell me, how well known are the Springboks in Romania?
Well, as far as our rugby community is concerned, you can imagine that they're extremely well known. And even though I wouldn't say that rugby is an immensely popular sport in Romania, but it's still rather well known. And I I've actually managed to get hold of some statistics as far as TV audiences are concerned, and I wouldn't say they're on par with football, with soccer, but the, the game against Ireland, also the opening game of the World Cup, they managed to get some pretty decent audiences. So we have a general population that is very much aware of rugby and who's who. And I can assure you, South Africa is among the most well-known.
Now, in your opinion, Lucian, how do you think Romania should go about trying to combat the Springboks on Sunday?
How they should go about? Well, it's going to be, I think it's going to be an even tougher challenge than it was with Irish because, yeah, we have, I would say that both Romania and South Africa, to a certain extent, they have a similar style of play, so rather physical. But I think, well, the Springboks are a tad more more powerful than we are, more physical actually. So I think there's going to be this reflex of promoting a similar style that I'm not sure we will be able to put forward as well as we might have been able against a different opposition. So it's going to be, yeah, very, very tough challenge for us. That's for sure. But I hope we manage to learn something from our mistakes with Irish, and hopefully we will have some good tactics in place set by our coach in order to overcome the challenge as much as that is possible. And look, we all knew from the very beginning that the World Cup is going to be tough for us, especially as a result of the 2019 debacle. So I think our aim here is to gain as much experience as possible, and basically to just form with generation of players in order to overcome the opposition that we routinely have in Rugby Europe Championship. You know, the likes of Spain, Portugal, well, the Dutch were very much up and coming, not to mention, of course, Georgia, for a very tough team. So I think we will use experience that we will gain at this level, which is rather rare for us. Face a team such as South Africa, such as Ireland, Scotland, never do that. So I think it will be an excellent learning experience for us, regardless of the sport. We will enjoy it, I'm certain.
Do you really know your rugby? Do you always get your predictions right? Why not make some money then? Open an account right now with Tic Tac Bets and get up to 2,000 Rand and 20 spins with your first deposit. The link is appearing on your screen and I'll also put it in the description area. Please note that this is an affiliate link and I will make a little commission on it. Winners know when to stop. National Responsible Gambling Program. Toll-free helpline 0800 006 008. No persons under the age of 18 years are permitted to gamble. So for our viewers who may not know much about the Romanian national team, who are the players that they should look out for?
Well, I think one of the players who actually managed to distinguish himself in the game against Ireland, Enquiries. He played as a fly half, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, he's a utility back, don't play in that position in our squad. But yeah, he's someone to look out for. I think Lucian Mircescu, he was the fullback in Spain. He's also a very tough player with excellent defense skills, and yeah, he plays with quite a lot of heart, I would say, like all our boys, actually. Yeah, I haven't seen the lineup, actually. I don't know if it's published, so I hope I'm not making a mistake here, but I would just like to mention the players who at least impressed me and in the previous game. Yeah, as far as the forwards are concerned, I would maybe mention the captain, Enquiries. The flanker, also a very tough guy. likes to carry those balls, gain as much territory as possible. And to be honest, I mean, traditionally Romania was well known for its scrum, and I was quite satisfied with how scrum handled the game, at least in the first half. The very idea of us not losing the scrums in the first half was quite well. In the good old days, we would have even tried to shove them, regardless of who would put in the ball. But nowadays, I'm just satisfied with not being shoved.
Absolutely. Lucian, let's talk a little bit about the history of Romanian rugby. I know that during the Cold War era, the Communist Party actually put quite an emphasis on rugby, and there were a lot of the members of the army and the soldiers, they actually played rugby and they played for the national team. And Romania was actually quite strong in those days. They would actually beat Italy and France regularly. Romania have also beaten teams like Scotland and Wales. But obviously, things have changed a little bit. But how strong was that Romanian team back in those days of the Cold War?
I would say if I were to find a correspondent nowadays rugby, I think it would be at the level of Italy. So every now and then we would be able to come up with a surprise against the big guns. Typically, it was France. And sure, every now and then, I think we had two victories against Scotland, one against Wales. I think we have a tie against Ireland. But the thing is that we didn't get that many chances to play against Anglo-Saxon. So we would regularly play the French, and every now and then we'd be able to grab a win. So fairly similar to what the Italians are achieving. Maybe a bit better than them, but unfortunately, that's the past. But fact of the matter is that much like quite a lot of other sports in Romania, rugby was heavily promoted by the state. Uh, it was this interesting system whereby have factory clubs. Romania was a heavily industrialized country, so the regime wanted to offer all sorts of recreational opportunities to the working class, and you will find in clubs, rugby included, organized around economic organizations, typically factories, workshops, and stuff like that. So many of be based around the industrialized areas. Unfortunately, the 90s came. Unfortunately for rugby, that is. 1990s came, and even though many parts of our society have changed as far as organizational issues are concerned, sport, and rugby included, has kind of lagged behind. So unfortunately, we're witnessing the decline in most other sports. It's not just the case with rugby. And I think the legislation needs to catch up a bit in order to allow more private initiative to flow in. Because at the moment, Romanian rugby is still organized around public institutions, which I think it's not the right organizational structure for sport in general. I mean, even when sport has a very strong social dimension, right? And you have plenty of volunteers, many amateur level players, and well, yeah, public institutions are not exactly the right setting for that. And it's a technicality that I may be insisting on. Maybe it's because of my public servant background, because I used to work in the Ministry of Sports actually at one point. Yeah, it's the organizational side of Romanian sport that needs to change, and the way we allocate financial resources would be different. Should we have a different type of organization, we would be able to get a wider support from society itself. So it shouldn't be just the public budget for sport. It should be like a two-way street. Sport should also be supported by the citizens themselves, but they need the right framework for that to happen. And unfortunately, yeah, Indian sport is still organized very much like it was. I don't know how it's a unique type of organization, because even before during the communist days, there was this recreational side of it. But unfortunately, the factories no longer exist, so they're no longer able to support this recreational dimension, right? So even the social dimension is lost that you used to have in the communist days. So because it's important to bear this in mind, it's not the regime on its own that would support. Of course, it was the policy of the state to support sport, but you would have like an organic support from the population itself, which is now sort of missing. So yeah, I hope I'm not abstract about these issues, and I hope I managed to get my message across. Bottom line, yeah, we need a sort of organization for sporting in order to catch up with other countries and go back to where we used to be, 70s, 80s, not necessarily in terms of performance. For one, I'm happy that Romania is in the World Cup, and I would like for us to participate more, but not necessarily rooting for us to get to the semifinals. I would just be very happy if we had more clubs, more people joining in, more people participating in sport via rugby. Rugby in itself has a lot to offer.
Hey, if you're enjoying this video, why not consider becoming a patron? You can click on my Patreon link, I'll put it on the screen as well as in the description box, and there will be great benefits for members. Let's get back to the interview. Earlier, you told me a little bit about how popular football is in Romania. When we watch the Olympic Games, we often see Romanian gymnasts, for example, doing quite well. How popular is rugby in Romania?
It is sort of a minor sport in the country at the moment. On the top of my head, I guess it would be like the 6th, 7th most popular sport in Romania. If I were to mix the number of players with the TV audiences that we have, yeah, ballpark 6, 7, something like that. That's a rough estimate at the end of the day. Because I mean, team sports are very popular. Tennis has also risen quite a bit, thanks to several female star players like Simona Halep, Sorana Costin. So tennis has seen quite a boom. So yeah, you have football, you have tennis, you have handball, which is quite popular. Basketball, especially if you look at the number of participants, and yeah, maybe some athletics, and then yeah, I think athletics is on par with rugby. Maybe fifth if I have counted the examples, but I hope I'm not missing any.
No, that's great. All about trying to give us a ballpark figure. In fact, Lucian, this might interest you. Certainly the last time that I saw any lists of this nature in South Africa, football was the #1 sport in terms of popularity, and #2 was actually cricket, and rugby only came in 3rd place. But obviously in terms of success, rugby has been South Africa's best sport. So on that note, Lucian, just before we finish, tell me about the work that you do at Aurora Băicoi.
Yeah, well, as I mentioned previously, I'm very interested in what rugby has to offer to communities overall. And I myself am involved in a small rugby project called Aurora Băicoi, which is basically a small rugby club. It's meant for children mostly in my hometown of Băicoi. It's like 100 kilometers north of Bucharest. And the idea is to promote rugby kids who also come from underprivileged backgrounds, but not strictly underprivileged backgrounds. And offer them a chance through rugby to improve their quality of life if that's possible. So basically, what we are trying to do is to get them to play rugby, and at the same time try to, let's say, expose them to all sorts of other kind of activities, like educational activities, help them with their homework when we get the finance that, or maybe support them for them to get some medical services, which otherwise they might not be able to get, especially maybe dentistry, some blood tests, basic stuff. But at a young age, fixing some of these health issues might be useful. But of course, we're not able to do that at any one point. It depends on the resources we're able to get, and through rugby directly, if we have some star players, maybe we try to promote them in rugby high schools, especially in Bucharest, where they would get free food, free accommodation, and that can make a difference for some of them. Not to mention the fact that if they manage to get through their junior levels, if they manage to finish their junior level rugby, they might, get a small wage thanks to rugby, and that can improve their life quality to a certain extent. Of course, the wages in Romania are not very high, but a few €100 per month here and there might make a difference, especially when you're, maybe in university. A bit of money can always help. So yeah, that's what we are mainly doing, and we started like 7 years ago, and yearly we get 70 to 100 kids are able to, including a girls team. We have a sevens girls team since 2019. So we're very proud of both our boys and girls.
That sounds great. Sounds like you're doing wonderful work there, Lucian. Let me say that it was lovely having you on Front Row Rugby today. An absolute pleasure. I hope that we can have you on again in the future, and all of the best for the match on Sunday.
Well, thank you very much. It was great to be here, and yes, I'm hoping for the best for the game that's going to follow soon. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for watching. I've also put together a series of other Rugby World Cup related content. Those videos are appearing on your screen right now for you to go and enjoy and binge watch. See you next time.